Greetings, Toffees. Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Frontier. Everton remain unbeaten at the Hill Dickinson Stadium despite a rather underwhelming performance against West Ham. Toffees now winless in 4 matches after they were unable to protect Michael Keane's first half header. James here, joined by Ryan to bring you the post-match analysis. Before we get into it, just a reminder that if you enjoy the show, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice, or check us out on YouTube. We have video now. We're on the YouTube, and also check out our merch. We have merch now. We're both wearing it if you want to see it. Dare I say, not patting myself on the back too much, but it looks pretty good. I think both of us agree.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We got mugs, we got shirts, we got all kinds of stuff, so check it out. Link in the description. Join our Discord. Everything's in the description, so just check it out. And with that, let's just get into the match, Ryan. It is over 24 hours since the match concluded, but I think we have some interesting discussion on the docket today, starting with our summary quote.
Yeah, I love the dialogue on the Discord after this one, as well as out on Twitter. Lots of good dialogue for the listeners from the Blue Frontier, and it's very much appreciated. I love what Kieran Jennings said, obviously, at KieranJ_1979. If you don't follow him, you really should. The man knows football very, very well. He's a little more old school than maybe we are, but I really appreciate his takes. And I think he nails this one because this is a little bit about how Everton is growing as a club and changing the way it's trying to play. So let me quote him well here. "We build better now, but miss that cutting edge in the final third. Need a focal point to play off and more intelligent movement from the likes of Ndiaye. O'Brien, woeful tonight, but as a team, we have to defend bigger spaces now, so some of the older lads looking their age." And I think he nails this so well because in this match, and we'll talk a little bit about the setups, when Everton have the ball, you see more control now. Bring in guys like Dewsbury-Hall and Grealish, and we talked, James, in the past about having dribblers and guys that you got to back off and give space to. That's great, and we've seen that, and it's gotten a lot better. But now the limitations in the final third show, and you either have to beat those with design or dynamic players, and we're not getting quite enough out of the team in the final third. But that's part of adjustment as a team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this was a type of match that just goes to show how much of a work in progress Everton continue to be. There's still the glaring holes, which we've highlighted, and we'll talk about. I think we're on full display today. But you also see the areas in which Everton have improved. And I think first and foremost of those is performance wasn't all that great. West Ham improved, I think, as the second half wore on, but we still managed to escape with a point. And the bad performances are not quite so extreme as they were in seasons past.
Yeah, but I think it's fair to say that we look a little bit predictable at this point now that we've kind of settled in. And really, James, I mean, looking at the lineup, no real surprises here, and this is part of it.
Yeah, I don't think David Moyes is one to really rock the boat too much, and as a result, the team kind of picked itself. It's exactly who you would expect. Everyone who's fit that's been playing consistently is in. You see Mikalenko, it's the same front four. The midfield of Garner and James Garner continue to be the first choice, and not really anyone role still not quite able to be available. Whether he even factors into Moyes' considerations at this point is a topic for debate. So it's an Everton team that is very well solidified at this point, and I don't see really changing anytime soon. We'll talk about the implications of the Dewsbury-Hall yellow card as we move throughout the episode, but Moyes seems very content as it stands now with the performance of this.
And I think this is complicated by West Ham bringing in a new manager. Nuno Espirito Santos is in. Different type of manager than Graham Potter was, and pick some different players, I think, as a result. I mean, you've got Fulkrug comes in for Callum Wilson. I think Fulkrug is a little bit better player, even if he hasn't really found his footing yet in the Premier League. Magasa finally gets the start. We talked about him a lot in our Premier League preview and kind of lead-ins to say that they need more athletes in the middle. And I think that combined with Souček being suspended and Ward-Prowse just not being in the squad, I think gives them a different look. Fernandez playing more in the middle as well. He's a bit of an attacking player, but that makes it a lot more palatable to have Paqueta in there, who is roaming all over the place and trying to create a lot for them, because now he has some athletes behind him and they can defend a little bit more in space. And Wan-Bissaka was out too, but they've got enough depth behind him to put in Walker Peters, and Juve on the other side is a pretty talented young player who was a little inconsistent, but showed some dynamic ability to play. And they attacked down the left side a lot. But the thing is, I think we expected some of that, right, James? I mean, Nuno likes to play behind it, play with somewhat of a target, but loves to attack with pace and verticality in his wingers. And I think Somerville and Bowden were the guys. And I think it was fair to ask the question when we talk about key matchups, Somerville and Bowden really against our fullbacks. Jake O'Brien's been a good defensive player so far with Everton, but there's not much attack coming on that side. He's not very dynamic with the ball. And Mikalenko's somewhat the same way, knowing that Everton probably have a little more strength on the left side and can get more into the attack. I thought that was a big matchup. And I think the other one really was the guys down the middle. The guys on the right side dealing with Everton's attack on the left. And James, maybe that's because we're a little bit predictable, but you have to admit when you look at these matchups, I mean, I like the matchup from the left side attack for Everton. I don't necessarily like the matchup in us dealing with their counter.
Yeah, and I think that was a really big wrench that got thrown into things. I mean, West Ham march out Graham Potter to take the pre-match presser, and within 24 hours of that, he's gone, and Nuno is in. And I think that completely changed the game plan, completely changed the tactical outlook. We know what Nuno has done in the past, as you said, Ryan, very dynamic, counter-attacking. They're fine not having a lot of the ball. And this was going to be a big problem for us because our back line is really not good at defending space. If we overextend, we sit on the ball a little bit too much, we give it to Jack and kind of let him try to create and try to surround him with options, it's very easy to get caught out, and that was the concern.
Yeah, and I think you saw that a little bit at the beginning of the match, and we say we like that matchup with Walker-Peters, Mavropanos, who's a little inconsistent on that side, and Magasa, who's new, good athlete. You like that matchup, playing behind Jarrod Bowen and really attacking them on the left side. And for literally the first 18 minutes of the match, Everton had 68% possession, 127 accurate passes. Garner with 24, Garner with 20. Those two were playing a little deeper and dominating the ball, but we were having a little bit of trouble breaking through. 3 shots on target to 0 for West Ham in those 18 minutes, but it really did take a little bit of time for us to break through and really challenge the goal. And I think, James, to your point, certainly Graham Potter's exclusion and bringing Nuno may have complicated things a little bit, or it's just our predictability, but I guess it was welcome to see Everton on the ball a lot, but that's not the way Everton have played a lot in the past. And I think it took a lot of feeling out for Everton.
Yeah, and it's not really, I think, how David Moyes has a ton of experience playing either. I mean, this is very much, in theory, a meeting of two teams, two managers who like to sit deep and try to hit quickly on the counter. Now, that is not what Everton are starting to become with the ability of the Jack Grealish and Iliman Ndiaye to possess the ball higher up and create, but I think the call out on the number of touches for Ghana and Garner is a really good one because I think early on they looked very comfortable. The movement off the ball was halfway decent. We were rotating possession very well, and we weren't really forced to do a ton of defending in transition, and they weren't, West Ham at that point, really exploiting the spaces in the midfield that we were leaving for them all game. They weren't really exploiting those just yet.
No, but it's funny. Things changed pretty quickly here. We had a big flurry of chances starting in about the 13th minute. And this is where you really saw the balance between Everton trying to control the match, break through the final third, but still being a little bit open in the back, much to Kieran Jennings' point in the opening quote we gave. I think the first hint where they might have shown a little bit of concern from an Everton standpoint is in the 13th minute. Somerville blows by 5 guys, including Jake O'Brien. Fulker gets it, kind of plays him in the box. It's blocked, but that's the first time it's like, wow, they just went by us like we were standing still because it's hard to defend up higher. You're standing still naturally, and they're hitting you. If they know and anticipate the counter, that's what works. I did see some good stuff, though. I mean, right after that, there was great ball movement where you see West Ham, they're camped out of the 18. You know, eventual cross from Tark for Beto, not a big chance necessarily, but it was the first time that we had a legitimate chance to threaten goal. Maybe Amazing header would have beat him. It wasn't a big XG chance. But then we have a pretty big chance here in the 15th minute where Ghana wins the ball back from Paqueta, who was flopping all over, of course. Dewsbury-Hall made a nice play and really showed some verticality in this one. I liked how direct he played tonight at times. He was more aggressive going after the goal. Anyway, he finds Ndiaye eventually, and of course, right wing Ndiaye cuts inside, great, but it's a weak left-footed shot. This is the time where you see Ndiaye and you think, oh, he's got him, he's 1v1. But James, he's totally limited being out there on the right side versus the left.
Yeah, and you can see teams, I think, have started to figure that out a little bit. When he's trying to cut inside, they're happy to let him do it for the most part because they know he's not nearly as dangerous. And you're exactly right. This is a really good move that leads to, in theory, exactly what Everton want in attack. You're one of your wingers 1v1 against the defender, but they're just not really set up for success there.
Right. Love to have a left footer like West Ham had to make that play and score, you know? And look, then there's kind of a flurry in a sequence. Fulkrug kind of gets his half volley that he did very poorly with, but that was off of Walker Peters' cross. Walker Peters on the left side on this one. Then right afterwards, and this is all kind of happening in sequence, Jack with this little chip pass to Mikalenko. I love this play where Dewsbury-Hall had a lot of opportunities kind of running in behind on that left side to the near post. Mikalenko does a wonderful job, great weight on the pass to find him. Ndiaye was wide open at the spot here. He misses him. He tries to play Beto. Beto staying in the middle, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Doesn't finish it, but it leads to a corner that, eventually, it's very interesting. Jake O'Brien was boxing out Areola, so Areola could not do much, although he did pretty well jumping over him and punching the ball, and he does here. Eventually finds it way back to Garner. This is a fantastic service. Tons of velocity and spin on this thing. But Keane just hammers this header. Areola did not have time. He could not get off his feet quickly enough to get this thing. And Everton are up 1-0. Now, I'm not sure we necessarily deserved it. I think we were the better side. But you knew this goal would change the match quite a bit, and it surely did.
Yeah, I think leading up to this point, West Ham very happy to stay compact and sort of hit quickly. This really put a lot of pressure on them to respond and up the intensity. But I just have to say, my God, Michael Keane on set pieces. The way that this ball comes in and the way that the looping kind of nature, but he's so far out and he has to hit it, arching it over Areola. The guy just has an instinct in the box when it comes to getting his head on things and placing them in the right spot. It's a phenomenal finish. It's a really good ball in to set it up. And Everton just, again, finding success from set pieces. Even though this isn't directly from the set piece, it's directly following. And we lead. And in theory, that should bode well. Everton need to push and really keep their foot on the gas, and I think this is where West Ham kind of take matters into their own hands a little bit.
Yeah, they grow into it. I can't say too many of these chances are massive, but you see the pressure going up too. We have a chart that shows the PPDA model, and it just jumps up under 5 for most of the rest of the first half. And I think what's disappointing, so if you look at a 19-minute onward, 68.2% possession for West Ham, only 2 shots to 1. But I think what was disappointing is, James, I don't think that pressure was so great that it should have caused Everton that many problems breaking through the pressure. They tried a couple long ball outlets to Beto, didn't really play off, but that wasn't what we needed to do. We needed to settle in, continue to work the ball. And when we did that, we were successful. A couple strange moments, the 23rd minute Tark yellow. I think it's probably a yellow, but Fulkrug dives and flops around like he's dead, and Tark was really mad at him, and then takes out Somerville later, although Somerville kind of flopped as well. And Tark is looking like he's mature enough to not be on tilt man, but he was angry. Fulkrug has a big chance on a header here, doesn't do very well with it, off a long throw. There were a couple of those from West Ham from the left side. And then I think the big moment, at least for me, in the 34th minute, again, this is great ball movement. Everton settled back into the game, moved the ball around, sends it out to Ndiaye. Ndiaye cuts inside, crosses the ball. Again, not necessarily a winger. This is a fantastic cross. Dewsbury-Hall is like on the 10 inside the post. James, it's just a better follow through, and he puts it in. He hits it wide. Massive chance. He has to score here, doesn't he?
It's a huge chance. You go up 2-0 here. He has to. He has to. I know it's a meme,
right,
but
he doesn't have to. But
it's not the easiest chance. But in that position, and he was really pretty open. You need to be a little bit more composed there. You just do, and he's not, and it comes back to bite us.
Yeah, it's disappointing too. West Ham gets a free kick too in a really dangerous spot here. A couple minutes later, almost inside the box, and another example where Jake fouls Somerville is. You could see it. This is going to be a matchup problem for Everton. And They get not enough out of it. I feel like Mavropanos had a decent heading chance on this, didn't really pull it off. And we eventually get to halftime. And I think if you look at the numbers and didn't really understand kind of the impact of the goal, you'd say it's pretty balanced, James.
Yeah, it certainly came off looking that way. I mean, having watched the first half, felt like we were mostly in control. They had those few chances, but we had the better ones. But at the end of the day, 51% possession for Everton, pretty solid passing numbers, and West Ham, 9 fouls for them to our 4. XG was relatively close, kind of a wash there, again, in terms of quality of chances, but I think ours came, shot numbers are roughly similar. Game state does change things a little bit. Everton were a little too much on the back foot after the goal for my liking. And look, and on one hand, it's like, you want to defend the lead. You don't want to overextend yourselves. But in a game at home, I know they just got a new manager and they'd been struggling prior, but you want to kind of stomp them out if you have the opportunity.
And these are some of the ebbs and flows, I think, of this Everton team. Now, that being said, I think they responded really well coming out of the gate in the second half. Everton were on the ball, showing more of a threat. You could tell Moyes wanted to go get the second. And I agree with that philosophically. Almost every data point out there suggests that don't sit back. It's way too early to do this anyway. And you're at home. And look, the first 10 minutes really was all Everton, James.
Yeah, 4-0 in shots, 55% possession. We had a corner, and we were only dispossessed once. So we were controlling the ball. We weren't giving it away cheaply. We were creating opportunities, and all was well with the world at this point.
Big chances, too. I mean, really, in the 47th minute, Ndiaye gets this pass hammered to him down the middle. He settles it, finds Dewsbury-Hall, breaking through on the left side, almost gets to Beto on the backside, but eventually falls to O'Brien. I mean, this is a massive chance by Jake, too. Wisecout actually had this as his biggest chance we had of the match at .22 XG, and I agree. We get a corner. Another pretty big chance, too, eventually, where Garner gets a ball from Jack, with Jack kind of slowing things down. But that top of the 18 was there. Garner with a really soft first touch, cracks this shot. It gets a deflection to go high, which the referee totally ignored and missed. Otherwise, it may have gone in. Of course, we don't get the corner. And then I think the Garner big chance after this great combination where Ndiaye kind of plays him through. It's a fantastic shot block. It was a great shot and a great run. This is our second biggest chance by Wisecout. And then there's the VAR check in the 52nd minute. I'm curious what you think about this one. It clearly hits Mavropanos' hand. It came off his body, so often they don't have that as a handball. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the logic behind it, but I mean, they were scrambling at this point. It would have been crazy for them to call it, but I'm not so sure what a handball is anymore. I guess, James, they probably didn't call it because it came off his body.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's written, is like that type of deflection they're not going to usually give, but it was, I mean, clearly touches his hand, and I think there's this ongoing confusion of what even is this rule? How is it? Why is it so inconsistently enforced? And it was frustrating. Mavropanos did look pretty guilty after that one. Beto immediately puts his hand up and is calling for it. At the end of the day, it really was the chances just before this. Like, that Garner shot was really good. And the one that Ghana ripped, I mean, he seems to have slightly calibrated compared to his usual 30 yards over the bar. That one looked really good too. That no call frustrated me more than the no handball, but nevertheless, felt like we kind of let this series of good play slip through our fingers without getting anything out of it.
A shot our shot here. Came out there, really went after it. And there was another decent chance in the 57th. Garner had a great volley on that kind of ball that looped in from the air. The concentration on this shot is unbelievable, by the way, because he's got the player right in front of him who kind of made way. But unfortunately, Everton didn't have another shot until the free kick in the 83rd minute. And look, if you look at these numbers from about the 53rd minute on, I mean, West Ham really started to take control of the match, really. I think they were the much better team throughout the rest of the second half, James.
Yeah, it really did feel that way, too. I mean, it felt like Everton were completely on the back foot. We were starting to get exposed. This is when they started really, I think, picking on Jake a little bit on the right-hand side. And as you say, from the 53rd minute on, 9 shots to 4.
Counter was working here. It wasn't
possession. For sure. Exactly. I mean, they only had 47% of the ball, but the 9 shots to our 4, they had no dribbles. 9 tackles, though, and 5 corners to our 1. So they were getting up in our face a little bit, and they were just kind of in and around threatening dangerous areas.
And we only dispossessed them once. I mean, it was very much a dice kind of schema where they didn't have to keep the ball, but we weren't winning it back from them anyway. And the pressure wasn't there from us. I think that's disappointing. Even if you have the ball, you got to counter-press sometime, and we didn't. And I think it made it too easy, I think, for them to really take advantage of those counter opportunities in the wide areas. But most of the time, it was just running it through Somerville and Diouf on the left side, and it just wasn't working for Everton. Jake didn't play well. Mangasa comes off the pitch. This is the first sub for Nuno for Potts, which is interesting. He's one of our own. Hear the chanting, whatever. He was on a yellow. I think he did fairly well in his first start. I mean, he was bypassed a lot, but he was a good athlete, and I think that's something that West Ham really needed. But almost from this point on, they really did well here. In the 62nd minute, though, man, this was almost an utter nightmare from Jake O'Brien. I don't mind the head flick back, but is he not realized that Somerville's behind him on this play, do you think?
Yeah, I think he's just kind of central and maybe doesn't check behind him as he's going for this. But it's really, really direct from West Ham, right? It's the long ball. O'Brien just tries to flick it back, but Somerville, anticipating well, kind of sneaks in on the backside, almost gets the shot on goal. This is actually a really good kind of instinct play from Pickford to touch it wide. I do think Keane kind of gets shoved in the back. I mean, Keane looked like he had this one lined up out of the air and then just kind of gets pushed, and so it takes an awkward bounce, and you never want to see that. That puts defenders in kind of a position where they have to readjust, and I just don't think in the reaction to that, Jake does well enough to understand what's around him. And it almost cost us really, really dearly.
I feel like the referee let them get away with a lot of physical play in the air, and I think that's something that West Ham has to have. Kilman in particular just shoves people constantly, was trying to throw Beto around. He finally got booked for the foul on Beto in the 63rd. I mean, he was just hatcheting him all match. He literally, when the ball gets in the final third, he jams people like he's a corner playing American football off the play. It's absolute nonsense. I don't blame him for doing it. But anyway, unfortunately, in the 64th, I can't really say this is entirely against the run of play, but I think it was surprising for West Ham to generate such a big chance on this play. And, ultimately, you just could see it. You can't let Jarrod Bowen get off his left foot and let a shot off. And sure enough, we did, but it still came from yet another positional attack from the left side, James.
Yeah, and Juve really, I think, grew into the game in the second half. I mean, he was exploiting his acceleration for sure, and he burst down the left, beating both players on the flank down our right-hand side. Jake completely left in the dust, to be honest. He's kind of on his back tracking. Tark, again, slow to react. Tark trying to make plays in the open field, any kind of tackle on a yellow is never going to work well, but he doesn't even really try to block the cross. It's not even that great of a cross. Keane gets a head on it. It falls to Bowen 1v1, and Jarrod Bowen 1v1 cutting into his left. There's really not that many positive outcomes for other teams when you let him do that so easily.
It still took an own goal, though. I mean, really, I know they gave him the goal because it would have been on net, but I don't think he scores this if Keane doesn't deflect it. And I think that's what's really frustrating about it. We thought the Michael Keane own goals were a thing of the past. I'm sure they gave this to Bowen, but it really came off Keane, and that was the biggest thing that was disappointing. So that's unlucky, but I don't know if a goal necessarily was coming if they don't get this deflection. But shame on Everton for not taking more command of the match and not getting the finish in the first 10 minutes. And that's the risk that you have. But you got to stay on the front foot. I'm kind of curious your take on this one, James. They were growing into the match. Moyes doesn't look like he's making a sub at this point. And then he finally makes a sub in the 68th, and it's just Barry for Beto. We could talk about this a little bit later, but I don't know if that's really going to be the impact that he wanted, especially with the role he was designating for the center forwards most of this match. It certainly wasn't a big game changer, and maybe Moyes just thinks, okay, just a little bit more effort there at center forward, we can take back control of this match, but I don't really think we ever did.
No, I don't think we did, and I think Barry was a complete non-entity in this one, did not get himself involved very much, at least in possession.
Though, do we think?
No, I'm not blaming him. I mean, I think Beto similarly struggled to get involved in the match, just with the way we were playing We weren't really looking to get them the ball and even to feed it all, much less like in areas to score, besides that early chance Beto had on the header. It was really a lot kind of living and dying by the decisions of our wingers, who were, I think, a little stagnant on the ball. And I think our off-the-ball movement, at this point, I would have liked to see some fresher legs maybe in midfield or on either flank, because I just think it got pretty stagnant at some point with everyone just waiting for someone else to do something.
And let's think of this. So Somerville was the most effective, shall I say, player on the pitch for them.
For sure.
In the 71st, again, this is another one where Bowen gets it inside the box. Diouf's overlapping run exposed Jake. It's one where he kind of spun back. But again, everything's coming from that side. Pardon me, the run from behind was in the 74th. But the point is, like, those two were really torturing Jake and that side. This is the one where Pick comes way off his line and makes a play. Very dangerous play, but he pulls it off. But notice what Nuno did in the 75th. He subbed Somerville out. Why? Not because he wasn't effective, but because he probably said, go flat out and I'll pull you when you're dead. And that's fine, and they need that. I mean, they need to play like that because it's exhausting playing on the counter like that, but they never lost any gas to it, and they kept coming and kept coming. And Moyes waits till the 81st minute to sub in Dibbling and subs Ndiaye out again. I still think he's our biggest goal threat in the middle. And this is an example to me where I thought Dewsbury-Hall was having a very good match and did okay in the second half of this match too. But Ndiaye is the stronger goal threat. It's just really disappointing to me that just because Dewsbury-Hall was having a good match, how you can't recognize that your right side, you're getting nothing. Defensively, you're getting nothing either. So the 1-for-1 sub like that, I don't think was necessarily the right thing. There's just a lot more guys too on the bench that could have changed the match a little bit for him, and I just don't think he took advantage of it. And it feels like that's 2 matches in a row where you had opportunities to make a difference in the second half through your subs, and you didn't, but the opposition did.
Yeah, I think for the most part I agree with that. I do think Moyes probably sees these 2 plays where Jake's getting kind of hung out to dry in space, and Ndiaye, who had been tracking back reasonably well up to this point, just wasn't quite offering enough support on that right-hand side. And so he said, okay, I'll put Dibbling in. But I agree, like this.
That's true. I mean,
I think Ndiaye was tired.
Today.
I think
he was discouraged, Dave.
Yeah.
I mean, his body language is not, when he got subbed out to, he did not look happy.
He's got to be thinking, why am I always the only winger that gets subbed, or the only attacker besides Beto or whoever's striker is getting yanked every single time?
And why am I playing on the right wing to begin with? Like, seriously. I mean, at OM, that was his big frustration. I mean, he went back to the club he wanted to go to, and we're putting him back over there. And I don't think it's the best use of him. By the way, when we see what happens here in the yellow card soon enough, we may not have a choice, although you have to admit, had you subbed Dewsbury-Hall out earlier, he wouldn't have got the yellow. I know, 20/20 vision and all that stuff.
Sure, you can say that, but I will say, at the time of that sub, I did think Dewsbury-Hall probably should have been the one to come off. But the effort he goes through, both to track down Mavropanos just a couple minutes later and win the ball back, draw the foul right after, get the yellow on Mavropanos, and then later on when he gets the BS yellow, I mean, he's really pushing himself in the later stages of this game. There's no signs of tired legs, really. He's really powering through it.
He is, but I still think Ndiaye's your more direct player and a more dangerous player. Maybe Ndiaye should have started off playing center forward today. I mean, truly.
Maybe.
And we could talk about that a little bit when we talk about strikers. Pretty ironic that Dewsbury-Hall makes a great place to pick Mavropanos, and then Garner takes the free kick and then goes down with the cramp right afterwards. It's like, great, really.
And honestly, like, why? I know Garner, he'd taken a number of good shots up to this point in the match, but please don't shoot from there. I know he wasn't far off last match, but
it's a debate.
I don't know. We have so much size on set pieces, and it's the only way we've scored up to now. Just give these guys a chance.
I think the more disappointing aspect is that, I mean, we went 30 minutes without a shot?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and it didn't look good. You could tell what they're doing. It was obvious what they were doing, and it was successful. And I think we saw that it was successful at the end of the first half, too. So surely we had some ability to deal with that. How about this little interaction in the 83rd minute? This is such nonsense, by the way. Paqueta stands over Mikalenko knew exactly what he's doing. And Mikolenko elbows him, and he goes down and holds his face like Rivaldo in the 2002 World Cup, where someone kicks the ball at him, and he goes down like he. I mean, VAR would have had a fun with that one before. Look, Mikko gets a yellow. He deserves a yellow, but this is the type of stuff that just annoys you. Paqueta's a good player. Doesn't need to do this nonsense.
This is the type of thing where if you're watching a match with someone who doesn't really follow the sport, and you're like, I'm embarrassed that I watched this sport from what I just saw.
Yeah, bingo.
You're instigating, and then you throw your hands to your face when you take an elbow to the chest and start rolling around on the ground like you've been shot. And yes, you can't retaliate. I know that's the rule, but it doesn't make it any less embarrassing. And really, there should be cards for both players there. You just have to punish this out of the game in some way. It can't go on.
He's like 6'1", 6'2", dude. I mean, come on, man. Like, what are you talking about? Like, the people on his native island. He grew up in that little tiny island in the middle of the bay in Rio, by the way.
Yeah.
Paqueta's not his name. It's the island. I don't know how that works. Like, you know what I mean? I used to work on Neville Island in Pittsburgh. Can people call me Neville? Like, that doesn't
I'll
make
call you
sense.
Neville.
Well, I'm not Brazilian, so it doesn't matter, because otherwise my name would be Da Silva something. So anyway, we can have Brazilian names, but that's really getting off track. Tyler Dibbling here. We had a little opportunity here. He draws a foul on Diouf, edge of the box. He looks good, by the way. This is a big chance too. Garner with a shot on the layoff. It's a good save. There's a little bit of a window there. Maybe if it goes up top, we score. But I really felt like the last 5 minutes we did start to come on, and I thought there was a chance maybe we could take the lead. And first of all, Dibbling I thought looked very good, James. But beyond that, let's talk about this call in the 89th, because it's a play where it looks like Dewsbury-Hall has won the ball clean. I never saw an angle from the opposite side, so maybe he didn't. Maybe he did fall through and really get Walker Peters. But the problem is that Walker Peters goes down, and we've got both Jack and Dewsbury-Hall with the ball. I mean, tons of time and space on the edge of the box. Both of them either one could have dribbled all the way into the box for a massive chance. And it gets Dewsbury-Hall suspended. I mean, that combined with the quick kick yellow, and it's just kind of ridiculous. I like the effort we were showing, though. You're right. Dewsbury-Hall was really fired up and showing energy, but it just wasn't to be. But this call is ridiculous.
I mean, it made me sick to my stomach. Yes, okay. He wins the ball cleanly. Yes.
The yellow?
After the fact, he clips him.
I feel like they gave him the yellow before he flipped out. I could be wrong, but
I kind of thought that too. And in no way is it a foul, much less a yellow card. The player throws himself to the ground, and Dewsbury-Hall truly can't believe it. And Grealish is right there. The play's right in front of him. He can't believe it either. I understand the level of frustration. He's really pushing himself to try to get the winner finally. And you get punished for that foul when it's just, he goes, the effort to press, to read the play, to intercept cleanly. Yeah, you clip him a little bit after, but I mean, what are we doing here, guys?
They were on the ropes too. I think that's probably the height of frustration. I think he does get it for dissent, slamming his hand into the grass. I don't know. Maybe deserved it for that. It's disappointing. I think it actually opens up some interesting possibilities for Everton going forward. But look, James, still, okay, fine. Match ends up 1-1. Probably a deserved scoreline. But I still think the story of the match is Everton's right side getting carved up to pieces. I mean, West Ham, we have some numbers here from a Y-Scout report that indicates attacks by flanks and danger level. And it's pretty crazy. Normally, it's a pretty healthy balance, like Everton's 40% down the left, 30% down the right, 31% down the middle, with pretty even XG distributions as well. But, West Ham attacked pretty evenly on either side, but generated nothing from the right side. The percentages is the XG percentage, but 99% of their XG chances came from the left and the middle. And almost all their attacks came down from the left as well. And it was very obvious. It's just Everton's right side got carved up. How about some of these possession loss, ball loss numbers? We looked at these after the match when we saw Ndiaye led the team at I think he had 17. Which is a lot for him. And it made us think, hey, does Everton, if we lose the ball that much? And James, these numbers are very telling, I think.
Yeah, to that point. I mean, you called out our right side got just ripped to shreds. And I think Part of that is the defending in space and the transition, but it's also the lack of care with the ball. I mean, Jake O'Brien now, through 6 games, is the 4th worst in the Premier League in ball losses or possession losses. Now, you put that in context, okay, 2 of those guys are goalkeepers. Only Mo Kudus is worse, and Trey Hume is the only other defender in the entire
like
group.
15th. Yeah, it's not even close. It's a really big number, and Everton are 2nd worst in the league. Bournemouth are worse, but they play that chaos, high-pressure, long ball game, and I would expect them to be very high. I mean, this is not good, James, because to me, and Ndiaye's pretty high up there too. He's definitely top 50 in the league. I want to say he's like 30-something with almost 14 per match. It just doesn't bode well. The right side is not functional, but at least you could say it locks down things defensively. If you're giving it away and you're still stuffing the opponent, that's fine. That did not happen today. So it's not just Ndiaye giving rid of the ball, it's also Jake's inability to at least keep it and be a safe option. He's losing duels. He's having to defend in space more. I get that. He's not really making plays with his feet. I know he's talented, but the problem is, James, what is the alternative here?
Well, this is the position Everton have kind of painted themselves into, right? The recruitment issues are well documented. You're banked on Jake having a passable, very solid, if not inspiring season at right back, and that could buy you time to patch the gap in the long term. This match was as bad as it's been for Jake, and I don't know if it will continue to be this bad. We have some comments. I think this is a good time to go to the Iliman Ndiaye comment, because he mentioned that the result feels worse because it exposes the structural problems. They scored because of our lack of a specialist right back. We couldn't convert on the other end because we still lack that finishing edge. And it comes back to the fact that this problem was known. It wasn't viewed as a problem or wasn't able to be addressed. And teams have started to figure it out a little bit. Like, if you have pace and you can be direct down that your left-hand side or right, you're going to cause us a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, if Everton don't have to play on the ball quite as much, this is less of a problem.
Exactly.
But maybe that aligns more to a back three. You know what I mean? Where you're playing more into Jake, that may be a better way to protect him, or frankly, take Tark off the pitch. Because Tark does not look good right now. I mean, Jake doesn't look confident either. But, I mean, on the goal, Tark was so slow getting over to the ball. Diouf had no threat of it having blocked. He's having trouble covering for people, lots of fouls. And I think this is right. The result feels worse because it exposes structural problems. I agree with this. And we've seen some of this, whether it's Ndiaye not as dangerous on the right. He created some chances today on his own accord, but just the whole shape of the game is partially due to the limitations of the back line at Everton. I mean, none of those guys, maybe Jake's the only one, like I would never play Tark and Keane with a higher line. No chance. You can't really attack. Can you really attack down the left side with Mikolenko as your left back? But Moyes won't give Asnou a look. So, and okay, he's green. But the other thing is, James, I don't see a better alternative than Jake. I mean, Jake's probably the best in open space defender at right back that we have. He's probably better than Jimmy Garner. And if you move Jimmy Garner to the right side, who the heck comes in the midfield?
Yeah, no, I that's like the type of thread you pull and you disrupt the rest of the team. That I think the midfield problems were also pretty major today. But like, I agree. Jake is the guy. It's not going to be Coleman. It's certainly not going to be Patterson. So you just have to kind of ride with this. And I think you, as a result, have to kind of compensate in other areas now. If teams are going to focus on exploiting that, then you need to pull a little more discipline. You need to have Garner come over to support, be a little bit more, and then that takes away with our ability to, cause problems for teams in the middle. So it all spreads around. It just all spreads around.
Yeah, unless you have a defensive mid back there who can really ping it all over the place, that's fine. And yes, you could cover for your fullbacks, but do you want those guys attacking either? That doesn't really solve anything either. I don't think giving them into the attack more is helpful and logical anyway. So either way, looking at the stats, second half stats, I thought they favored West Ham almost overall. Nothing really of note here. It looked like a fairly even match. I think West Ham maybe had a couple of statistically higher generated chances. It didn't feel that way to me. I think Everton maybe had a few more, but it's hard to ignore as much as they were torturing us on the backside. There were some good performance, James, but I have to admit, picking out the good ones today wasn't so easy. There weren't so many bad ones. I think the particular bad shape on the right side being exploited was the obvious issue with Everton, as well as the inability to break through the final third. But there were a couple, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, I go to Michael Keane. He got the goal. It was a fantastic goal. He also was first on Everton. I think he had 13 total defensive actions, 10 of which were clearances. 7 of those were aerial clearances. But he was 6 for 9 in duels. I think overall, it's exactly what you want from Michael Keane. He chips in on the offensive end, which he just seems to have a knack for doing. But I also think the stat line does highlight his limitations alongside Tarkowski as well. I mean, 1 tackle, 1 recovery. He started the season well. There's no question about it. And I think there's a real argument to be made that Tark should be the one to drop. But in any case, that pairing of those two, combined with the limited mobility of the outside backs, really limits Everton's ability to push up that line. And I think that leaves a ton of space that both Garner and Garner are struggling a little bit to cover.
I agree. I think Dewsbury-Hall was a pretty good player today, too,
Yes.
for Everton. I think overall, I don't think he's been at his best the last couple of matches, so it was good to see him play against a relatively stout setup and create some chances. He had 2 shots, none were on target, but he was 1 for 1 in dribbles, 6 touches in the box, which I think he is the guy that you want to have the ball in the box with chances. And he worked hard on defense, too, dropping in as the third midfielder at time. He was 4 for 8 in duels, 0 for 7 on crosses, though, and we didn't quite get what we wanted off corners from his left foot. Just couldn't quite come up with the quality in the final third, but he was at least active enough, and there just wasn't enough movement kind of to break into the final third. He was the architect of some of those moves, which was good. I like this quote here by PDX Toffee because it really summarizes the match pretty well and kind of our feelings on the second half, but also transitions into, maybe our most consistent player at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to say it, but PDX Toffee was worried that we would get punished for not capitalizing on the fast start to the second half, was unfortunately right that you were. Starting to look very redundant in attack, Garner was absolutely everywhere. And I do think you kind of got to give the nod to James Garner today, if for nothing else, just relentlessly looking to get involved. He led the team in touches again with 84, actually led all players. He had 2 tackles. Shockingly, no other Everton player had more than that. No one in the game had more than 3, so it wasn't like a super combative tackle full game. Again, led the team in touches. He gets the assist for the really good ball into Michael Keane, although Keane certainly did most of the work there. 4 for 7 in long balls, 3 for 4 in ground duels, and he had 3 shots on target, all of which I thought were really well taken from some distance. So,
yeah, probably looked for a shot maybe a little too much, and we see some limitations in his ability to transition, but today he took care of the ball pretty well, which I appreciated, which was needed. It's just a shame that, to PDX's point, that, we didn't, I think would we capitalize on that little burst in the second half and sit on the back of the ball, it's a very different story to this game.
No, I think that's right. I think that's definitely right. And I also will just call back to the derby maybe, when Ghana gets the goal, but he also has like almost all of our good shots. I'd rather James Garner be the guy taking those shots for the most part. So in that way, I think it's a good adjustment.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I'm glad he's looking for a shot. We've mentioned that even last year all throughout, that Garner really is, he's not necessarily the greatest center mid, but if you can get him a little closer to goal and get that shot off, I know he's not going to be an attacking mid, a creator, but the shot is dangerous and he can score, and he's shown that already. Look, I think there's just a lot of structural points, I think. And, unfortunately, I think West Ham exposed some things and just kept at it. Maybe there have been hints of it in the past, but not quite to this degree. I think Kevin Dyer at Nebula 1979, friend of the show, has some pretty insightful comments that I think are worth discussing here, James.
We can always count on Kevin to give us great fodder for some pod discussion. For this match, he said, "We've been worked out. Double up on the wingers and block the middle. Go after Jake O'Brien. attack needs reconfiguring. Dewsbury-Hall, good player, but not a 10. Calls out some of his numbers. Ndiaye, not a threat at right wing. Moyes needs to shake it up and use the bench earlier. Center forwards isolated, 1 goal in 7 games. Now, this was a big talking point. The lack of contribution from both Beto and Barry. It's been an ongoing dialogue we've had on the show. But before we get to that, thoughts on, I kind of agree with Kevin that teams have kind of just figured out that if you can just contain Ndiaye and more specifically Grealish, that kind of kills most of what we have going in attack. If you just don't get beat one-on-one, there's not a lot of off-ball movement. Grealish doesn't trust Mikalenko getting up alongside him. There's not a lot of interplay there. And I think we've become, as I said, a little bit one note.
I think so. I think you saw some heavy effort at the beginning of the second half that could have really done the business. I think that's true. It's just become predictable and slow. Again, I think playing into this team, West Ham and their setup probably did not help us. So that's probably a big part of things as well. Yeah, look, I mean, the other teams are making subs and things are going well for them. We're not. And so you can start out with this core and it may work out. And it worked out fairly well through maybe about 52 minutes, even with the threat on the counter. But you have to make changes. And we're not getting impact off the bench, not only because it's mostly like-for-like stuff. We're just too predictable. In terms of the center forward play, all right, so a couple different things. It's a bad matchup with Kilman in terms of Beto. But Kilman and Mavropanos, they won 15 out of 18 duels. They only lost 3 duels for the whole match. And part of that is us playing into a back line that's sitting deeper. But the tactics here do not favor Beto and Barry. And there's kind of an exchange that I had with Top Balk Toffee, who I like a lot. His point was that Beto has big spaces to run into a number of times and just doesn't see it, leaving the player in possession frustrated and having to turn back. He's been poor, as has Barry. They both struggle to find space in the box for our wings to find them. Surprised at your take here, my point, because my point has nothing to do with the center forwards. So to this, and he kind of follows up with like Beto refusing to run into the acres in the space for the outball and the player possession. Let me tell you what, I think he's wrong. And I think a lot of people, apparently 50,000 people out there in the stadium, saying that Beto make a run, Beto do this, they're wrong. And let me tell you why I think they're wrong, James. So West Ham's playing a low block, a medium to low block, but eventually they drop off and they're at the 18. Everton are having no problems getting the ball to the final third. Absolutely none. Now, if they panic, I can't help that. Once they get it into the final third, and I think that's the right thing, to possess the ball and get into the final third, what are they asking for the center forward? So think about this. They're playing a lot with Grealish on the left side and Mikalenko. The runs that were made in behind to take the space in front of him, just to break through the back line. You can't do it right behind the goal, right? Because the goalie will pick it off. Sweeper keeper, that run down the middle, run behind is taken out by this tactic. So anyone that expects Beto or Barry to run in behind down the middle is wrong. That's the whole point of a mid to low block. Who was making the runs? Dewsbury-Hall. He doesn't want the center forwards to make that run towards the corner. Because what the heck does that give you? Absolutely nothing. All it does is take your center forward away from the goal. For what? To sit on the ball close to the corner? For nothing. So that's not what was happening. Dewsbury-Hall would make that run into the half space. Mikalenko played him through once. A couple times he was still making the run all match. What were the center forwards doing? They can't make the run because that space now taken. No, they're sitting on the back post and staying in the middle. The job of the center forwards, the way we were playing in this match, was to occupy the center backs. So he's not making the run on purpose because the run doesn't help you. The only way that run helps you is in transition. If you're having trouble, if they're pressing higher. We weren't having trouble with that. That was never an issue. So yeah, that makes sense if you're making the run 50 yards away. That wasn't what was happening. Now look, you can bag on them for losing duels, right? That's a fair point, James. Right? I can't argue with that. But there was a reason when Barry came in and he only touched the ball 4 times. Do you think Moyes said, hey, this is what I want to do. I want Barry to get on the ball, and he just didn't magically do it in the second half? No, it was intentional, folks. And I don't need to be at the match to see it in all its glory from the upper deck, from my seats, to see that, because I know how Nuno's going to play. And so, look, I just, could the center forwards play better, James? Yes.
Of course.
But
No question.
you can't keep blaming the center forwards when no one is creating chances for them. When they're missing chances before, fine, but they're not getting chances at this point. I mean, Beto had that header. That was
Literally, that's it. That's it.
Right. Right. In fact, in some of the plays, some of the interplay, he did come back and lay the ball off a couple times, but
And I actually think he did that better towards the end of his stint than he did maybe in the first half, like coming back and getting involved. But
I'm not going to blame Barry, though, for not coming in and making impact. He was playing where he was supposed to play, man. And I don't understand. Like, just because there's space does not mean the player's supposed to run into it. And I'm sorry, you cannot ignore tactics. And you can't ignore defensive setups. You can't ignore basic components of team play. It's not just individuals can't do whatever the heck they want all the time. And people have to realize that. You know, it really drives me bonkers, man. It's like Jake O'Brien got exposed a lot today. You know why? Because he wasn't sitting 20 yards in front of goal being 6'6". He had to defend guys in space, and that's hard. So I'm not going to trash him for that. He's not a right back. I don't know. I don't think people are being fair. And if we're not scoring goals, it's not always the center forward's fault. Like, just stop. The focus on center forward is so insane. But you know what? Look, if you want to play Ndiaye at center forward today, maybe the way they're setting up, maybe that was the right move.
I do think this current Everton attacking setup is due for some sort of reshuffle, because clearly the center forwards, whatever they're being tasked with, they're not having the kind of impact in the final third that we would expect them to. They might be doing exactly what they're asked to do, but I know Moyes wants them to score more goals. I don't think the rest of the group is doing enough of a good job getting them those opportunities. At the end of the day, you're there to maybe get the ball in a dangerous area, create your own shot, or you're there to just finish the chances that others create for you. And we created plenty of shots for James Garner today. We didn't do a whole lot to help out Beto or Barry.
And the sad part in this instance, we had chances for Ndiaye to shoot the ball, but he's cutting in on his left foot, and there aren't the best chances. And he's not able to drive towards the goal. And I find that really disappointing. And he looks frustrated, man. And I don't want to get this guy ticked off. And, you know, I hope with Dewsbury-Hall out, we'll have an opportunity to see Ndiaye playing down the middle, because I'll tell you what, I thought Tyler Dibbling looked very good today.
I thought so too. I thought he looked excellent. I thought he brought a little bit more of what we see from Ndiaye and Jack Grealish, which is that really clever dribbling ability and fearlessness of taking guys on. I do think Ndiaye, people have figured him out a little bit, and I think he probably needed to release the ball a little bit sooner, and I would say the exact same thing about Jack Grealish today. I think both wingers, especially in transition, if we're trying to break down the flank, they got to have guys to give the ball to, but they also have to release it quickly. Like, Jack Grealish gets the ball, receives it, turns, looks around, starts to dribble kind of slowly. The defense is back and set. We need to try to catch some of these teams out in transition. That's always where we're going to be most impactful.
In this one, I'm fine with him sitting on the ball a little bit on the left side if there's some design around that. And it can't be just Dewsbury-Hall making a diagonal run every single time. Mikalenko is, had a couple crosses early, really wasn't effective. But, yeah, James, I don't think Jack played very well today, really.
Which is kind of creative. I mean, he created 4 chances. He only gave it 5 misplaced passes and had only just a couple touches fewer than Garner. But even still, I think he won, the most ground duels in the game. But I agree. I just think he's getting on the ball a lot, but they kind of figured him out. And I think there were times when I just wish he would shoot the ball.
Yeah,
fake shot and cut back, and always trying to it's the Man City conditioning, I think, a little bit of how he's learned to play.
And look, James, it allows us to get settled in the final third in ways that we couldn't before as a team. And this is maybe what Kieran Jennings was talking about again in terms of a team in transition. But he's not a goal threat right now. Not really. And that's disappointing. You'd like to see that happen. Now, I think you could do that a couple different ways. You could do it with a left wing back. Maybe you could do it by putting him in the middle. I mean, I'm just saying, I know it takes away the certainty and the comfort of being able to play him the ball on the left. He can orient someone on his left hit, and no one could get the ball. But, Ndiaye can do that and dribble by people, with Jack's ability to get it and play off him. I just want to see Ndiaye and Jack combine. I really think, I know both of them are dribblers, and I get it, but I liked what I saw from Dibbling. I would love to see them in combination. Maybe even someone like Charlie would be helpful, a guy that's a little more direct, but something's got to give. And just these like for like subs, and they're happening too late anyway. I think Moyes needs a little bit more design. That being said, we could talk about how to mix things up with Dewsbury-Hall out. I made a couple suggestions. What is your thought about that one? And honestly, James, are we overreacting because we're playing against a team that's playing this type of block, knowing we probably won't face a lot of this and still probably play behind the ball a bit as a team?
I think there's some of that, but I also think there's this sort of vision of Everton as a team that, when given the responsibility of breaking teams down, given more of the ball, that they're able to do it. And I think we just weren't quite able to do it today. And players looked very uncomfortable when asked to really be dynamic in the final third when the defense is set. And I think that that's just going to take time to kind of come along and develop. And I do think the frustration is the same group has consistently played.
Right.
And I think there's options with this personnel now to switch things up. And I think Sleazy says it really well from our Discord. Sleazy Dewsbury tall boy. Poor use of subs, poor reffing, poor passing in key areas. Need Merlin and JB back, and for Charlie to get the minutes he deserved.
Well, I'll say this. Merlin does give you a little something different maybe on the ball, a little more impetus. He's not the defensive mid we need. Again, another thing in the window we did not get, and I don't understand why. I like Dewsbury-Hall as a player, but I'm not so sure that we're not more effective with Ndiaye in the middle and just keep dibbling out on the right. I don't know. We'll see. But I think Sleazy's right here. I mean, the subs are not making an impact. They're not coming in at the right time. They're certainly not changing the story at all. And you just saw West Ham, yet another team, got better in the second half. I think Dr. Def Stephen Williams brings up a couple of interesting points. Is this just the same old Everton again? Is the team just not that good either? I don't know. I mean, I'm curious your thought on this one. He asked some different questions, I think.
Yeah, this from Steven. Just a typical Everton performance of recent years, and more than deserved a draw. 2 defensive fullbacks are killing us going forward. I wish he used his squad more as well. Dibbling sooner, Alcaraz, etc. I think all excellent points from Steven. I think the narrative around this game was established when Potter was still the manager and they were really struggling. And I think you get Nuno in there, you see a dramatic shift in tactics. West Ham are not as bad as they've been performing this season.
They have some talent.
They have some decent talent, and I also think Everton are just kind of finding their place of up and down. It's going to be an up and down season. It's a big transition season for the club, and I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting super frustrated because I guess I was just sort of expecting these sorts of ups and downs throughout the year.
Yeah, I'm a little bit that way too. So Big T at Big Tech 51170 your Discord. 1 point versus bottom 2 teams is unacceptable. I don't disagree that the Leeds performance was pretty garbage. I think that was very frustrating. We did not look effective, didn't look up for it, anything. I don't like the result tonight, but I'm not really sure what we're expecting. So I think you look at it, we're 9th place, 8 points through 6 league games. Had a couple tough matchups here, James. I'm not surprised where we are in the table. I think this is the type of team we are, and I'd like to see some changes. And as we go along in the season, hopefully Moyes will start to recognize some of those things and incorporate more people into the match like everyone are saying. But I'm not upset for where we are in the table. I mean, what were people expecting?
Well, maybe expecting a little bit too much, as we tend to do from Everton. But, I think Big T's point, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I also think we did, as part of the larger conversation, we've let a relatively favorable start to the season kind of slip through our fingers. And when you look at the next 5 matches, we play Palace at home, and then you have the international break. Then you go away to Man City, home versus Spurs, Sunderland, who have started the season pretty well, and then against Fulham. Not the most daunting list of fixtures, but some places and some opposition that Everton don't usually perform well against. And you could easily see this kind of, we haven't won in 4. You start to see that stretch. You start to see these same problems week in, week out, and the mood starts to turn pretty sour.
I think so, but some of these matches, they can play into us a little bit, like at Man City, which I don't know if you're going to hope for a result on that one too. Home versus Spurs. Spurs look great. At Sunderland, okay, maybe we have to play a little bit different. Keep in mind, Diarra went down for Sunderland too. He's out, so that's different. And Fulham at home is fine. I just think JB coming back would make a big difference. Michael Keane has been fantastic, credit to him, but Jarrod gives us the ability to play higher in a different way. I still, though, would really like to see how Moyes does incorporating some of these other guys into the fold. He's got to change things in the second half in a different way. And I think that's really the biggest issue at this point, James, in my opinion. Certainly the international break gives him some time to figure some things out. I don't think we have to fear Crystal Palace, but they are playing exceptionally well. Before we get into Palace, though, we want to catch us up on the world of score predictions because we had a couple of them today. I thought Wilfred's one was the most spot on one, 1-1 and something along the line. Nuno frustrates us, which is, I mean, very much exactly what happened. And they started to grow into that identity throughout the match. And again, I think if we score in the first 10 minutes of the second half, it's a different match. But a couple other guys got it right today, too.
Yeah, we had 4 today. Bad Gumby, TJ Biro, otherwise known as Thomas. And then we had Count Basic and High Soccer Guy. So people, I think, pretty measured in some of their predictions. There were a lot of people thinking we'd win, but I do think that the Nuno thing coming in, I think that changes the calculus a little bit. And I agree with you, Ryan. I think the real thing to monitor is Moyes. We know that he can be a little stuck in his ways, but there are options to be a little inventive, a little creative with the personnel in this Everton team. And when things aren't working, it's fine to start with this group. But if things aren't working by the 50th, 60th, and we need a goal, you've got to be willing to switch things up a little bit and catch teams off guard. Even if it's a change of formation or something like that, you can't just go like for like and expect the tactical issues to resolve themselves.
You can't just line up and beat guys. I mean, you're right. You can't. I'll tell you what, we've got Palace next match. This is an interesting matchup. They're playing phenomenally well, but Glasner, in the last matches against Liverpool when they beat him, has flat out said it. You're going to play the same way, we're going to beat you. Like he is a good tactician, and he will have something designed specifically to face this team and the way we play. Now, it's easier said than done to just go and disrupt Jack Grealish, but this guy is clever. His team listens to him and will execute his game plans. Moyes has got to dial up something a little different. Now, he'll be forced to make some changes because of Dewsbury-Hall, but this team's playing pretty well, James.
They're the only unbeaten team still in the league, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, they've sort of just taken this FA Cup victory last season and not missed a beat despite losing some very important personnel to them. And they beat Liverpool with 24% possession, something crazy like that. So Glasner, as you say, one of the best tactical managers currently in maybe in world football, definitely in the Premier League. And this is going to be an interesting test for Moyes because personnel-wise, again, they have a good squad, a well-drilled squad, a squad who understand how they want to play on a weekly basis. But I think there are ways that Everton can exploit them. It's a question of, will we have a more dynamic plan in place when the time comes?
And I hope we do, James. I really do. But, it's just disappointing. I think we're just still a little bit stuck without the right back, without a true 6 in there, too, that can maybe change things up a little bit. Unless he's going to go with a back 3, and I cannot see him doing that necessarily. He's done it in the past a little bit. And he'd have to have a lot more trust in certain people at different positions. I don't see that ever being the case. But at least we know for sure we're guaranteed some sort of mix-up with Dewsbury-Hall. I would be pretty disappointed, though, if he kept Ndiaye out on the right side and just plugged in Charlie. I don't think he likes Charlie particularly, so I wouldn't expect that to happen. But it would be really nice to see what if Ndiaye could work a little bit with Jack and maybe put Dibbling out on the right side to see if that might change things. But he's going to have to do more than that in terms of structural, because even West Ham in the second half started picking the ball and just playing it through our midfield. And again, the lack of the 6 was a problem. I mean, a lot of the progressive longer passes would catch Garner and Garner out, and that either forces you to take that third midfielder you have and drop him deeper, or push him up and pressure better, and we did neither. And, Garner is being asked to do a lot right now, playing a ton of minutes. So's Garner playing different places. It's just still a little bit limited squad in a couple key positions, James, and I think it really It really prohibits or inhibits the way we can attack in particular. And it has me concerned, at least until the break when JB comes by. But I really wish he'd give a little bit more thought and it doesn't have to be right away, James, but I would love to see Asnu come in and change things a little bit. I would love to see Ndiaye playing a little bit more in the middle, just to be a little more of a direct force attacking the goal. Because when you looked at the stats in the pass maps today, I mean, it was like just down the wings. There was nothing down the middle at all. And that would have been a great setup to allow planes to land, but that's not exactly what you want your shape to look like. So something's got to change for sure, James. This team is too good to be able to just play in a predictable way and expect a result.
Yeah, and I think I do agree. You kind of have to figure out something different in midfield. Too much responsibility being heaped on Ghana and Garner, both on the ball and off of it. Reinforcements. Part of me just does kind of expect him to just throw Charlie in to minimize the disruption. But I think I'm an advocate for disruption. Going against Palace, switch things up a little bit, catch Glasner off guard, and go for the win.
And maybe start with Ndiaye up top, or just maybe change formation. I really would be interested to see what a back three would look like playing a little bit deeper. I think it'd be interesting. But nonetheless, it's a shame it was 1-1. It probably was the deserved result. I know we're seeing some limitations this Everton squad, but there are some injuries. It could look different. Let's just hope David Moyes changes things up a little bit and some of these young guys get a few more minutes and start to show their true talent, because there still is a lot of young talent on this team. I think what's most important this year is those guys getting opportunities to grow. And I don't expect us to compete for Europe this year, despite people's early excitement. So to me, what will be really interesting is see some of these guys grow and develop. I like what we've seen from Dibbling. I like to see Merlin a little bit more. I like to see Asnu in some chances. So those will be exciting things to watch no matter what happens from a result standpoint.
100%. And I think that's almost sacrilege to say, is like the results aren't the most important thing.
Well, I'm going to say it over and over, my friend.
But I agree with you. There is a lot of, this is a year to set the stage for the years to come. What happens in terms of table finish this year is not the be-all, end-all of the Friedkin Group's ownership of Everton.
Care about winning stuff. And to me, we need superstars out there. We need top-flight players, and we bought some top-flight talents. If they can develop, we'll have a chance to do that. And that's what's exciting for me. Nothing wrong with seeing Jack play. Dewsbury-Hall's a good player too. But, man, I want to see the young guys really give them a platform. And I'm excited to see that as we go forward.
Likewise, I think that's going to do it for us on this episode of The Blue Frontier. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate it. Reminder, just leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice, or if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Check out our merch. Join our Discord, follow us on socials. All of those links are in the description of the episode. And with that, we'll leave you till next time. Until then, up the Toffees.